All right, so hi everyone. Today we're going to be going to talk about the next part of the throwing process, and this process is called trimming. Just like we did with day one this week on Monday, as I'm throwing, I want you to think now of two questions that you have about the throwing process, specifically looking at the trimming process. So, two questions while you're watching the video that I want you to ask and I will respond to about the process. Please write the questions in Classroom so that I can answer them about the next process. So, this is the bowl that I threw yesterday. I did something just different to the rim to make it more interesting, and I was able to let it sit out. Being home is nice because I'm able to watch the clay a lot closer. So my clay is already dried overnight to leather hard without it kind of cracking or becoming bone dry because I was able to watch it. So it's leather hard now, and now I'm going to be removing clay with trimming tools to get a more defined foot. So I'm going to be talking about the foot today and some more defined edges. So as you can see, I have a trimming bat placed down, and this is just a tool that's going to help me center the clay again. So I've centered it when I was throwing to get it perfect, and now this bat allows me to center the clay so when I'm trimming, all the sides are equal. It's the same idea. So the way you do this is you spin the wheel, and wherever the clay touches, you just press towards the center. There's also rings on the bat that kind of help you understand where things should be. And that's pretty much centered. And then I just use these pegs, turn them in, lock them, turn them in, and lock them. At school, there are different trimming bats, and there's also other ways to trim. Today, I'm just going to go over this one because my wheel is kind of dirty, so I don't really want to clean it to show you the other ways. So the tools that you're going to use for the trimming process, so now it's good, it's not going to fly anywhere, should look pretty familiar to you. So hopefully we remember what these tools were called. There are large ribbon loop tools, but there are also tools that are good for carving, hollowing out things, and the trimming process. So these are two that you will recognize. You also can use a variety of things. I have some other ones that look a little bit more kind of like weapons, but they're not. They're just used to trim. And they just get certain kind of shapes to them, and they're all different. And then I have even small ones. So you can see a smaller one, and those do some more of the finer details. Okay, so we'll begin. I'm going to use these ones because they're a little larger, so I'm going to be using these to remove the larger part of the clay. And as you can see, the triangle one's more for, more square, more sharp triangular edges and flat edges, and so is this one, but it also has a curve to it, which allows you to transition to more curved areas at the same time while you're throwing. So this one is usually the better one to use. It's more universal. And then you're going to spin the wheel at like medium speed, and at 3 o'clock, all you're doing is you're going to take the tool, press it against the clay, and the clay is going to start to trim off small ribbons of clay to help define the bottom of your pot, or you can use it to also do designs. So again, you're going to notice I actually switched the camera view so that you guys can see the 3 o'clock position. So this is at 3 o'clock because the clay is coming towards the tool. And you can go pretty fast with this. It's all about pressure. If you add too much pressure, it'll break. I'm just trying to define my shape a little better. And it's really up to you. The best part about the trimming process is you have a little more control. In the throwing process, you can do things, but you can't make sharp, clean details because the clay is so plastic. Because it's leather hard, I'm able to do just details that will last, just like when you carve. It's always good to carve at the leather hard stage, just like it's always good to trim. So some of you hopefully are thinking, well, how do I know when to stop? Because you don't want to obviously trim through your pot or make it too thin because it'll become too fragile. So when you stop the wheel, You can pat it with your hand, and if it makes more of a hollow sound, you know you're getting thinner. Right now, it's more of a thumping sound, which means that I have a lot more clay here to trim with. So I'm going to transition into some other tools so that you guys can see other tools at work. And these ones are new, so they should be nice and sharp. And these ones really just help clean up the details. I'm going to make a nice little detail line there for my pot. I'm going to transition back into this one. So making a nice little, just indent. And you always have to think about glaze, right? You want to know where glaze is going to hit, where it's going to break, what it's going to do. So you do have to think a little bit ahead about some of those textural spots. And you always have to think about where glaze is going to sit. If you're going to be using a lot of glazes with fluxes like oatmeal, ancient jasper, some of the palladium, some of those ones we talked about that are a little bit more runny, you can layer them. You just need to have a spot that kind of catches the clay. It helps pull so it doesn't run off your pot. Obviously, I've done this enough to know where and how much to leave. You always can leave more. I'm gonna stop my wheel. You hear that sound? It's a little bit more hollow. That's a little more thicker. Hollow. So if I kept trimming through this piece, there's a good chance it could just break. And also as it becomes bone dry, it becomes a lot more fragile. So I've done some details to the outside to give it, a little pizzazz. A little bit of fun, a little bit of design. And you can carve at this, attach things to it once you're done with this to make it more sculptural and interesting. So now I've trimmed the side of my pot. I'm pretty happy with this. I'll show you some other details to help clean up some of those kind of trim lines. Actually, I'm gonna get this bottom part first. Just to clean it up. All right, now we're gonna start working on the foot. So when I was throwing, I left about a quarter of an inch on the bottom so that I can trim away and give it a foot. In class, we add a foot usually. We coil a foot around, attach it, blend it in. But with this, I'm going to be using a subtractive method by removing clay to create my foot. So again, I spin my wheel and I just start to make a little incision. And this incision will help me define my foot. So I'm going to pick up my camera so that you guys can actually see this a little better. Because I can. And you can see that right here is my foot. So I've already defined my foot, and all of this part is going to be removed so it's lower than my foot. And this will be the spot that no glaze will go. Okay? We're dry footing it. So this will all be removed, and then I will clean it up and be pretty much done with this bowl. Okay, so I'm just going to put my left finger on there to hold it. And I'm starting to remove little by little. And you don't want to be too greedy with taking away the clay, because if you are, you run that risk of going right through your pot, and then all the work that you did for throwing and all the work you did for the stage is kind of done. You can be fixed sometimes, but sometimes fixing things is not as easy as just starting over. So always take your time. I'm just trimming it, giving it a nice clean bottom area. So remember, I'm almost kind of done. But you do want to start thinking about what 2 questions that you might have about this process. They could be anything, and I will do my best to answer them. Trimming is actually one of my favorite processes. I think I have a little bit more control over my clay, which I do enjoy. And now I'm just taking my tool and giving it a nice round foot. It is always your choice if you want a flat foot or a round foot. I find that round feet don't wobble as much because There's not a flat surface, it's kind of more rounded, so it doesn't really rock so much when it comes out of the kiln, and there's a little bit less sanding to do. I hope everyone is doing well. Okay, and now I'm just going to take a little bit of water on my hands, and I'm just going to kind of clean things up. It's almost like throwing, but the clay is a lot harder, so it doesn't move as much, but you can help kind of smooth some areas. Just a little hint of water, and a little goes a long way. And my left hand, you see, is holding the pot, just in case it comes off. So I'm just kind of rounding this edge nicely. I'm going to dip my tool in the water, actually. And what that does is help smooth out the surface. Remember, glaze shows almost every mistake. So if there's a bunch of bumps and you don't want them, well, glaze is going to definitely show them. So it's important to get rid of them if you don't want them. So I'm just kind of smoothing things up. And then this is just a personal note. I use the small trim tool and I do my signature. And my signature is just a kind of swirl, and I've always done this since college. And there's some other people who kind of do something similar, but this is kind of how I sign my work. I don't enjoy signing it like my name, so I just kind of came up with a symbol, just putting it in the bottom, making it nice and defined. Okay, let's see. So now you guys can see this is the trimmed pot that I made yesterday. So I'm just going to take it off so that you guys can see it better. You can hear that hollow sound. That means that I stopped just at the right amount of time. Now see that the bottom is trimmed. It has a nice foot. It has some good design. And I'm actually going to carve at this, do some other stuff to make it just a little more exciting for my glazes. All right, so remember, 2 questions that you have about the trimming process. They could be anything. Make sure you attach them, and I hope you guys enjoyed the video. All right, have a great day.